friends. Welcome back to the Field and Garden Podcast. It's your friend, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I am really pretty excited about what we're going to chat about today because I have two ladies here to introduce to you guys. And before we do that, if you're new here, welcome aboard. And if you don't know what we're all about, I am what's known as a commercial flower farmer, and I have a small urban flower farmer in the middle of the city in southeastern Virginia. And we just do all things cut flowers here on this podcast. We talk about growing them, whether you're growing them in your backyard for your kitchen table, or if you are aspiring to sell them to make this your hobby, get a little more serious, or even actually your career. So we have a lot of great resources available for you over at thegardenersworkshop.com, even beyond our podcast. You'll find videos and just a lot of really supportive stuff if you want to learn more about growing cut flowers. So today, I'm really pleased to introduce to you guys two of our newest team members here at the Gardeners Workshop, Jessi and Ann. And before we start chatting with them and getting into kind of what they're up to, how they came to be here, and what they actually do at the Gardeners Workshop, and kind of about their own businesses or what they're aspiring to do now. But first, before we do all that, y'all, I really want to share a little bit about how I came to know these two gals. So both of these ladies are students of some of our online school courses. And what that means is that that really allowed me to get to know them as well as to watch them interact with our other students, right? And their classmates, not just our students. And what was a real white flag to me was that both of these girls really practiced kind of that same motivation. I don't want to call it motivation. It's kind of like my guiding light here. And that is that the two of them really, because they weren't working for us, y'all. They were just students like everybody else in the pool and the pond, right? Both of these ladies just reached out and were serving other students to help them, to answer their questions, to help guide them. And that just really, I had a connection to that, right? Because that's what I believe. I'm kind of, I'm that person that always wants to exceed people's expectations. And that's exactly what I saw in Ann and Jessi. And y'all, guess what? I scarfed them up. I approached them. They didn't approach me for jobs. I reached out to each one of these gals individually at different times and said, hey, we really would like for you to join our team virtually here. And and that brings us to where we are today. So welcome, Ann and Jessi.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
So I will say that both of these girls we work together virtually. Ann is in North Carolina and Jessi is in Kansas. And so Ann, I'm going to start with you first. Just kind of introduce yourself, tell us your farm name, and kind of how you came to be a part of the Gardeners Workshop. And then we'll ask Jessi just to jump right in and do the same.
So we are Franklin Flower Farm, and we are located in the beautiful mountains of Western North Carolina. So we're about an hour and a half west of Asheville. We're very small. We've been growing since 2018. And most of our sales have gone through farmers markets. We have a couple grocery store accounts, a produce stand, and florists. And I found you through your YouTube channel and your seed starting Saturdays that you had done. What year did you do your seed starting Saturdays?
That was several years ago. Yeah, that was like in the beginning of, not time, but that was when I was really starting to do more live stuff. Yeah.
So I found you through that. And that is when my failures with gardening and seed starting were just legendary. And I remember watching your seed starting Saturdays and you just broke it down. And I thought, I think with this person's help, I might be able to successfully start seeds. And from there, I found your business online, the Gardener's Workshop. And then it popped up out of nowhere. You were doing your on-farm flower farming boot camp.
That's
And
right.
and jumped in on that 2018, barely got in, emailed and begged and begged and begged, and got one of the last spots that was in 2018, and came and saw your amazing farm. Having visited a couple other farms before I came to yours, I thought, just this is where we need to be to learn how to run this. My background is not in growing and it's not in farming. My background is in sales and marketing and corporate communications. So as we were finding flower farming, I knew the big piece that was missing from us was growing and what to grow, because it felt overwhelming. But I remembered just saying, if we could grow this, I knew I could sell it. I knew I had the sales and the business part of the business, but we didn't have the knowledge of the cut flower farming. So that's how I found you.
And you know what a gift those talents are. So Jessi, tell us a little bit about you and your farm and what you're doing.
Yeah, so my name is Jessi Graven, and my farm name is Blue River Blooms. I am in Kansas. I am on the Kansas side of the Kansas City metro area. So that's it spans both states, Kansas City and Missouri. So I'm about a half an hour outside of the metropolitan area. And I ended up following you on Facebook and later Instagram after I first heard about you on a podcast. And someone was being interviewed and they mentioned you as someone who had written some great books. And so I looked up your books, and at the time you had written the Easy Cut Flower Garden, I believe, and had just also released the Cool Flowers book. So when the Cool Flowers book came out, I signed up for the Beyond the Book for Flower Farming webinar, and was still working full time at that point, and would listen to it on my way back and forth from work. and just started. I was still living in the city at the time, and just started dreaming about the possibility of a life of flower farming. And so I got involved in the very first course that you had put out for the online course, and just fell in love with the Facebook group, with the private Facebook group, where we all had an opportunity, all the students had an opportunity to commiserate and ask each other questions in addition to interacting with you. And just kind of as I started to learn more and got more experience and stuff, I stayed connected to that group and found that it was a really useful resource well beyond the course time. And that's kind of how I got involved more with the Gardener's Workshop, by being really present in those groups. And I took more classes as well. I think I maybe have taken all the courses that you've offered at this point.
I think Anne has too, haven't you, Anne?
I have. We'll get to that in a bit, because I just have some fascinating stuff to share on that, because I feel like I've taken one thing from each of those courses, just one thing that is paid for the cost of the course itself. And when we have a chance, I've got a couple examples of that. So go ahead, Jessi.
So right now, my flower farming business is still pretty small, but I'm sort of going with a philosophy of bootstrapping and doing what I can with the equipment that I have and the tools that I have, and as a single staffer, even though my husband does help out some of the time. And so I've been selling at farmers markets, and I've also created sort of a little network with other flower farmers in my area. And I've been doing some sales to other flower farmers as well, both for their markets and for their special event work and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where my business is right now. And prior to being a flower farmer, I worked in marketing as well, as Anne did, sounds like. My experience in marketing was direct mail and it was with working with catalog and magazine companies back at the turn of the century. um, back when there were a lot more catalogs out than there are now. But I worked in that realm for a long time, so I'm happy to have some skills that I can continue to utilize both in my own business and with the gardener's workshop as well.
So thank you, girls. That kind of tells people where you all were coming from. And, one of the things I wrote down several notes when y'all were just talking about that. First off, I want to say the book that Jessi mentioned, the Easy Cut Flower book, is no longer in print, but we actually made an online course that's on demand that people can purchase anytime, that basically is the same. It's got the same message and the same teachings that are in it. But I'm really interested in something that you said, Jessi, and I know, Anne, you will have something to say about this too, is about the optional closed Facebook groups that we have really spent a lot of time trying to build those into really useful tools for our students to use because of the community, of the support, and just how indefinitely, as long as you want to partake in those groups, right? There's people there that kind of makes you feel kind of good when you can help somebody that's, a couple years behind you and you have the answer maybe to their question. But I explained it to somebody the other day that I see the community in those groups almost like an ant family. When one person needs help, everybody rushes in and lifts them up and carries them. I mean, it's just really pretty amazing. And Anne, I know that you were not a Facebook user before kind of becoming a part of this, and that we're a little resistant. I can remember talking to you about, you can do it without getting involved in what a lot of people think. Well, Facebook is. It can be. It's whatever you make of it is basically, right? So, Anne, tell us about, what was your experience with joining the Facebook group, and was it worth kind of stepping out of your comfort zone to do that?
Sure. So I still don't have a personal Facebook page. We decided to create a Facebook page for our farm. So that is when we made the big leap. So for Franklin Flower Farm, we're on Facebook, and decided that it was worth it to dive in on the Facebook group through a professional business page. And I've never looked back. It was worth every bit of making that leap. So you don't need to have, it's strictly for farm business. But the two things that I tell people is how many times in that group, jumping in, and anybody is responding to your questions right away, because it's a very supportive group, and how much the support is of keeping going when you've just had your bad days, especially on social media, when everybody shows the best and nobody shows how hard it is behind the scenes. And there've just been so many times since 2018 that group was started that I've just seen people just ready to quit, and other people coming in like, okay, well, let's break this apart. What happened today? What's going on? I've got a perfect example. We were struggling starting Celosia, and we were just getting horrible results with Celosia. And I remember this one clearly. I jumped on, I said, we're getting nowhere. And just the fellow group mates jumped in. They're like, well, you got to tell us what you're doing. What are you doing? And boom, they said, you're missing moisture. I wrap my trays, and this is what we do. You're not hitting your temperature thing. So we went back with the suggestions from the group, and boom, we got 100% germination. That is the support that is in that group. And I could go on, but that to me was one of that, in such a competitive business, in our group that is special, people jump in and help each other.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really special about flower farmers. We are really, really open to helping each other because, I'm a big believer in, the rising tide lifts all boats. I don't see anybody as competition, and we try to influence people to think that way also. So, Jessi, tell us, one of the things that I really wanted us to kind of not focus on, or to include in our conversation today is that, when somebody jumps into flower farming, whether you take our courses or not, you jump in and you start your business, that there are so many doors that are open to you once you get into the trade and start to kind of find your way. And the three of us, and Jessi and I, are all three perfect examples. I've started from being a flower farmer. I mean, that's what I've built my whole career and businesses on. And here's Jessi and Ann, who jumped into the courses and started building their businesses, but yet they're reaching beyond that flower farming. What I want people to hear, I think, is that there are so many other things that you can be led to as your life develops and changes, right? I mean, we hear from so many young mothers that are like, oh my gosh, there's just no way I can do everything. But it's like, well, can't you grow enough for like a 10 or 15 a week bouquet subscription, maybe? Figure out what you're doing. And then by the time these kids get in school, guess what? You'll be ready to roll. And so, Jessi, tell us a little bit about why did you say yes when I asked you if you wanted a job? Was it the excitement of having something else to do with flower farming, or what was your thoughts?
Well, honestly, since I'm coming from the perspective of, having been pretty involved in the Facebook group and working with newer students as they came into the group and that kind of stuff, I saw it as an opportunity to be even more helpful to those people that were just starting out, to make it clearer that, what the opportunities are out there, and hopefully reach more people in the end with the message that there's a lot of opportunity in this field, a lot of opportunity for us as a group of flower farmers to influence the market here in the United States. And, that there's just more possibility here maybe than people realize. One of the things that I think is amazing about flower farming is that, how much you can produce in a small space. I think that since I had only ever grown vegetables, very prolifically before I got involved with this, with the courses and stuff, I was under the impression that I was going to need quite a bit of space. And it's just not the same as vegetable farming in that way. And it's really, there's a lot you can do. And like I said, I'm coming from kind of a bootstrapper mindset. So the idea that it was something that I could do, with maybe limited resources or limited space, maybe limited time even, was something that appealed to me. And I love to have the opportunity to get that message out to more people. And I thought this might be a way to do it.
I guess one thing I kind of skipped over was, what did I hire these ladies to do? So Jessi, when she initially came on board, I hired her to be what I was calling our student ambassador. That is the person we have many closed Facebook groups, one for each one of our different courses for schools, for her to kind of be in those groups and to be an assistant to our students if they had a problem, and figuring out how to make the most out of those groups, and to just kind of be the hostess basically for those groups. And was brought on board as kind of our communication person. She's the one that receives all of our emails and does a lot of assisting our customers, whether it's our online store or our online course customers. Grants people access to our Facebook groups, the closed ones. She makes sure you're really who you say you are before she lets you in. And so that's kind of where they started, but they will both tell you we have just continued to add new parts to their job constantly. It's kind of comical, actually, but I think that's the way it is in any growing business. Is, friends, the number one thing you have to understand about business is there's no 2 days the same. And what you do today may not be what you're going to be doing tomorrow. And I think some people feel like they are constantly challenged that they aren't figuring it out. Well, this is the way it is. This is business. So, Anne, kind of tell us, why did you feel like, why'd you take the job? I guess is what I'm asking.
So what I loved that I got from your classes in the gardener's workshop was starting our own plants from seed. I had such a mental block on my ability to do that because we had just failed so much at that. And so I did not realize how many people were so intimidated at the thought of starting their own plants. And that is where that was a launching point for me with, the gardener's workshop and learning that, and just the teaching that you give your students. And, before I found the gardener's workshop, it was basically limited to what we could buy at a big box store. That was it. And so as I took the courses and took the flower farming school and learned the seed starting and got that confidence and had success, I was like, I never thought I could successfully start plants from seed and grow them because I'd had so much failure. I was so intimidated by it. And so when the opportunity came to bring in some of my sales and communication skills, that's when I jumped at the opportunity to handle those customer emails coming in and route them to who needs to go to build that confidence. Because I know how intimidated I felt. I really did not feel like I had a green thumb. Because that's the stereotype that's out there. Some people, they just have this magical green thumb and you either have it or you don't. And I have sent so many of my friends your book and just all that. So that was the big thing. I mean, you helped me get a green thumb.
And, it's just so funny you say that. That's the number one thing people say to me, besides a couple other phrases that get said, is they say, I don't have a green thumb. And so you're so right. That is really a stereotype. So I guess what I want to ask you girls next is, I really feel like, both of you, I feel like are really sitting in the great seat in what you help us with. So your confidence in being able to not only be flower farmers and to jump in, because we still don't all know everything. It's just once you get that confidence of doing, for Anne, that for you, that is, seed starting. I totally get it. I was a total seed failure myself. I can remember the hallelujah dance the first morning that my seed snapdragons, germinated like 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And it was like, it changed my life. I understand that. So would you not agree that gaining confidence, whether it means you know everything or not, it's just maybe even knowing one little piece, gives you the gusto to march in to starting a business or to join in this trade of flower farming and cut flower industry in a way you never imagined after gaining knowledge?
I'll jump in on that. This is Jessi. I feel like confidence is not necessarily a natural thing for most people. And, having some education is a terrific way to help build confidence. I think that, it's all farmers, and probably everyone in general, but all farmers are always learning. There's not ever going to be one season that's exactly like the last season or anything like that. And you kind of get in the mindset where you're comfortable with a certain amount of uncertainty. And, because you have the background to deal with whatever might come at you, and you are able to use your knowledge to prepare for things, for certain possibilities and that kind of thing. So the confidence is a big factor, I think, and I remember feeling that way as well when I finished that first course. I really, particularly again with the Facebook group as a backup in case I had questions that I didn't feel like I remembered from the course or things like that. It really gives you a foundation for you to then go and find out what is true about where you live and how you need to process, the information to be able to use it on your land with the equipment that you have, and that kind of thing. the foundational knowledge helps you tailor your specific process to your situation. And
I'd like to jump in on
yeah.
that, Jessi. I think you just brought up a good point, and that is where flower farming school and all of Lisa's courses, I mean, until I found you, Lisa, your approach is unique because so much of the gardening knowledge and information I was getting from people seemed like it was so specific to their area, to what they specifically grew, where the flower farming school and the seed starting course, these were the skills that anybody needs to be a flower farmer, which was the seed starting and the knowledge that you build for your particular farm. I've visited so many farms in the last 3 years, and everybody's farm is different. And that is where the flower farming school, that's where the light bulbs just started going off in my brain, going, it is a set of skills, and having the resilience and realizing you never stop learning. And the most successful people that I've come across in this business, they are always reading, they're always learning, and they're always trying to build those skills. And these are people who are big names. And some of them are, our instructors with the Gardener's Workshop.
I think that's a good point, that what I guess I really wanted to share with people is that when you become a member of a group of people that are like-minded like you, serious people that want to build a business, and that you have them as some, I've heard a couple of students say this about Dave Dowling, nothing like having Dave Dowling in your back pocket. They're talking about on their phone, because our course has an app that's on a phone, right? And when you become a member of a group of people that are there to support and answer your questions, and to go and find out and help you, to back you up, it does kind of change your whole perspective on business. And so I guess I really wanted to ask both of you, do you feel like, I've already said that both of these ladies have practically taken all of our courses, and they did that before they worked for us. They ended up here by virtue of me coming to know them through those courses. Do you feel like you're a better equipped business person? Not that you know everything, but do you feel like you have options? Isn't that kind of what it's all about, is to have options of where you can go to get information? Jessi, I see you shaking your head. What do you think about that?
Yeah, there may be people listening who are in a position where they're not real sure where they want to go things in the future, and they don't maybe even know what all the possibilities are, and that kind of thing. And I think that, once you start taking foundational courses like these, you start to get a better picture of what you even have to choose from, and what best suits you, and your life, and where you are currently, in your life, and any information that you gather along the way, you never know when that's going to be helpful, when it's going to come into play for you. I'm always interested in the, overall trajectory of people's careers and their lives. And I think that, everything that you learn and all the information that you gather over the course of your life is going to benefit you in some way. And you just don't always know exactly how.
Exactly.
But yeah.
So to add, last year, our florists, we had 2 big florist accounts. They were shut down from COVID. And I went back through all the courses and started watching them. I mean, Jenny's course, Dave's course, your course, because we had to just switch gears. And I remember watching through them going, okay, I mean, these are florists. They did big weddings. They were shut down. We had to switch gears. And so we switched gears and sold through produce stands and grocery stores because they were moving flowers. And so we went through Dave's course and yours course, and I watched again. We had to crop plan and do that. That is a real life example. This year, for various reasons, we don't have the labor to help us on the farm to do grocery store bouquets. So I've had to switch gears again. I'm selling more to florists this year. and doing a little bit more. And perfect example, Dave, you and Dave did a succession planting webinar over the summer. And so because we had to switch gears, we grew callas for the first time this year. Tremendous success with our florists. So
Yeah.
that's an example. I mean, I had one florist, she just said, she just bought every single stem. I never would have grown callas, but I knew about them through Dave's class and then through the webinar that he talked about succession planting. I mean, we thought we'd just be back to business as usual. And well, if there's one thing I've learned, there's no business as usual in flower farming.
Yeah, that is very, very true. And I think instead of feeling like you need to learn every single thing to do, it's getting the confidence and having the options and where to go to get your information. And so I think, y'all, I'm just really showing off here. I'm not showing off the Gardener's Workshop online courses. I'm showing off two of our great team members that have that same passion that the rest of us do. I mean, that's the root of everything with us, is sharing and helping other people to succeed in whatever you choose to be. And I tell you something else, a podcast that I just did recently, and I think the title was something like "No Free Fish Here, I'm Teaching You How to Fish." I think that is where we draw the line in the sand with a lot of what we do, whether it's books or webinars or online courses. We try to equip you to figure out for your situation, because there is no two situations the same. Even if somebody was in 2 miles of me, I can promise you our growing conditions are very different. Our markets would have to be very different. So I'm just really proud to tell people, if you are interested in our online courses, you can learn more at thegardenersworkshop.com. But our big school courses only enroll once a year, and that's because they are delivered over a 6-week period, and the instructors are pretty interactive with it, which means it's a very limited time that we can offer those each year. And you can learn more about that, get on the wait list at thegardenersworkshop.com. And 4 of them register in the fall, October and November, and 1 of them registers in midsummer. So I would highly recommend that you get on our newsletter list so that we can keep you abreast of what's enrolling. Enrollment's only open for 5 short days, and I won't bore you with the rest of the details, because you can just head over to thegardenersworkshop.com and kind of check this out. And Ann and Jessi, thank you girls so much for joining me here today. And I just wanted to give people a glimmer that there is more to this industry than thinking about that you're going to be a flower farmer for the next 30 years, that there are so many paths and so many business options and opportunities. And I mean, we couldn't even begin to cover all the different opportunities and things that we read students doing. It's like, who even knew that was possible, you know? So each one of you want to give us like a little 30-second wrap up blip for you. Ann?
I'll jump in first. Every course that I've taken, and I've sat through all of them, I have been in a pinch, backed into a corner, and I have remembered something from one of those courses that I learned that has helped our farm. And perfect example, we had equipment issues this year. We were trying to get our dahlias planted, but I had sat through the no-till flower farming class with Jonathan and Megan. And I was like, you know what? We had so much rain, we couldn't make new beds. And we used some of the things we learned in there, and we got our dahlia tubers planted, which I never would have thought about pivoting and doing. So that is the magic of this too. I mean, it's just, and it was so inspiring, and it felt so victorious.
Yeah.
So that's where the learning never stops. And that's what makes you successful in this business, that you just keep going and you keep learning.
Thank you, Ann. Jessi?
Yeah, so I thought I would just close with saying that, this community that Lisa has built is invaluable, and it goes well beyond the courses. And I think that's in the end, that's the magic of it, is that you kind of bring together people that you wouldn't have an opportunity to meet maybe otherwise. And yeah, I think anyone that's considering it, it's definitely worth its weight in gold.
All right, girls. Thank you all. And hey, friends, thank you so much for joining us here today. And until we meet again, ciao.